Well, good morning. How are you all today? Welcome to Integrative Preparedness, the place where people come when they're tired of all the doom and gloom and fear porn out there and actually want to learn something and talk about real stuff. It's good to have you. Have you ever had a hero? That's what I want to talk about today. The trouble with heroes, and it is a problem. It is a major problem in our society today, mainly among the men out there, and a particular problem, I think, in the preparedness world. I want to talk about that. By the way, welcome to all the new people. We have so many people joining both on the YouTube channel and on the Patreon channel. It's good to have you. I'll say a couple of things about the Patreon channel here in a little bit. But but let's get to the main point here. When I was a kid, probably like you, when I was a young lad, I had heroes. Now in my day it was Superman, and back then it was played by George Reeves, and it was in black and white on TV, and the Lone Ranger, and that was about. Then there were some lesser ones, Hopalong Cassidy and some other things. I can't remember the name of them all, but I watched them all the cowboy things, right? And and it was just you would imagine yourself, right? You could imagine yourself in the role. And most of us at that time, we had our little gun sets, our little toy guns that we'd wear around, and our cowboy hats and things like that. Then I got to be about 9 years old, probably something like that, maybe 8, 9, I don't know. And my hero worship started to fade. Excuse me, just a second. Okay, I had to sneeze. My hero worship started to fade because I started having, a better recognition of the real world, the regular world around me. And then I started seeing things differently, and I started replacing that hero worship for an understanding of reality. And so I had my hero worship was replaced with respect. Now I think many of us. I always kind of looked at my dad as a hero. He was for that time he was 6'7", huge, big guy. Everybody looked up to him. I mean, figuratively as well as 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 physically. And he'd been in the war. He'd been in World War II. He got the Bronze Star, and he'd done a lot of cool stuff. And to me, he was just a hero. Very quiet guy. Never and but very, very outgoing and very nice. And I saw that other people looked up to him too. So he was kind of a hero to me. But then I also realized that he was a human, and he wasn't perfect. I mean, he was in my eyes for a long time, and then you say, oh, okay, we all have our issues, right? Uh, and so that changed my life, and I saw that it was respect that was important, and being able to see things realistically. And so I had great respect for my father all of my life, as also for both of my grandfathers. I was fortunate to have strong men who were worthy of respect in my life, that after whom I could model myself. Things seem to have changed, and I want to talk about the problems with so many men, surprisingly many men in their 30s, maybe even 40s, I don't know, who are still enamored with the fantasy of heroes. And the problem with this is because it gives them, they live their lives vicariously through holding up these people that they view as heroes, and they don't see the need to develop real traits and attributes themselves that could be held up with respect. Many of them, make their, well, I don't know, they view themselves according to how much money they make, or, what they do for a living, or whatever. And I teach my kids this. So the important thing, especially my sons, is to be respected by other people. I tell them men, but people who are themselves worthy of respect. Now there's something going around right now, and it's, I won't say that I'm happy that it's happened, but as so often is the case, just like with the FBI, I had a low opinion of the FBI for many years, ever since I was in law enforcement, but they were still held up as heroes, right? Um, and only recently has have the masses realized what a corrupt organization it really is, and that's not a reflection on each individual's agent. It's a reflection on the organization and the total thing, and it shows how people have seen poorly uh, through the smoke and mirrors that they were trying to hold. Well, now one major thing that has come up recently has been the exposure of a number of special operations guys, and the revelation that much of their stories have been made up lies, that they've lied about what they've done. Those people are just to name a few: Chris Kyle, um, Marcus Luttrell, Rob O'Neill, and now Tim Kennedy. Now, most of you out there are familiar, most of you guys anywhere, are familiar with who these people are. Probably most of the women know who Marcus Luttrell is and Rob O'Neill and all that. Fewer probably Tim Kennedy, because he got a lot of his fame from UFC. The first time that I saw Chris Kyle, back before he was killed, I didn't see him personally. The first time that I saw him on some kind of talk show, I don't remember where it was, and he was making the claim that he had punched Jesse Ventura, knocked him down or knocked him out or something like that. I don't know what it was. I forget. And the guy who was interviewing him said, "You really?" I knew he was lying. I could tell by the way that Kyle was acting, the way he was looking, the way he was talking. I knew he was lying. I said, "That's a lie." Okay. The first time that when I read the book Lone Survivor, the book purportedly about Marcus Luttrell, I said, "That's BS. That is total BS." Excuse me just a second. And then when I saw him being interviewed on a couple of things, I watched him. I looked at him. I said, "He's lying. He's lying." Same thing with Rob O'Neill. Rob O'Neill, the guy that claimed that he killed bin Laden. Everybody held these guys up. These are heroes. Whenever I would express the opinion that I thought they were less than a hero, oh my gosh, the world was ending. How can you possibly question these great American heroes? Now, they probably did some things that were great. I don't question the things that they did well. What I'm talking about is the lies that they built their lives on and their fortunes. All these guys went on a whole bunch of TV shows and web, podcasts, and wrote books and all this crap, made a buttload of money, and made them, and they were stars, right? What's that movie that they made about Chris Kyle? It was just wasn't true. Tim Kennedy is the latest one that he's come out with his book Scars and Stripes, and there are a couple of websites or podcasts that I will mention in a minute that are just going through this line by line and saying BS, 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 BS. I saw Tim Kennedy, not Tim Kennedy. He's kind of gone across. He's both UFC, and then he's military, and then he's big in the gun shows and everything like that. He's anti 2A, but people let that go. So he's got a huge following. Well, I used to be I don't know if I should mention this or not. Let me just say that 20 years ago, I was part of a communications group where Tim Kennedy's name popped up often. I'll just leave it at that. But I would listen to Tim Kennedy on so many of these things, and I said, "This is it's BS, total BS." And then there's another one that's also, I know he's a great hero to so many people, and I don't see quite the same problem with him as I do with these others, but that's Jocko Willink. Okay, All right. I listened to a lot of his stuff, and I said, okay, he's playing a role. He's playing a game. He's using his background as a SEAL to, uh, promote himself. I mean, I get that people use their backgrounds to promote themselves. The problem here is, I won't even say that the problem is with these guys, although they are a problem. The problem is, and I'm going to put up, man, let me throw this in right now. I would suggest, if you don't know what I'm talking about, or if you want to look into this further, there are two podcasts that you can go to. The first is the Anti-Hero. Is it the Anti-Hero podcast, I think? It's run by a Delta guy named Brent Tucker. And another guy, I think he was 82nd Airborne and a street cop, and I don't know his name. They dive into these things. They have had in-depth shows on. Right now, they're going through Tim Kennedy. I suggest you watch it. They have gone through Rob O'Neill. They have gone through Marcus Luttrell, exposing all the lies there. That this lone survivor hero worship stemmed out of. And I don't know. Yeah, so they're going through Tim Kennedy now. They have mentioned Jocko to a little bit, not a lot. And I don't know if they've covered the Chris Kyle situation. Doesn't matter. There's another one also called the Green Beret Chronicles. I'll put these. I'll hashtag these up and so you can see them. And he covers it very well. I don't know his name, but he's retired Green Beret, and it does it very well. There's another one that kind of covers this, Jameson's Travels, I believe. He's a former Marine. He touches on this, but the Anti-Hero podcast is the one that really delves into this. Now, a lot of people get mad that these guys are doing this. How can you possibly question these great American heroes? And then I know that there are people who will say, well, how can you tell? And here's the important point here, guys. How can you tell just by listening to them, just by watching them, that they were lying? You weren't there. How can you tell? You haven't talked to anybody who was there. How can you tell? Let me tell you how I can tell. Because I have experience. Okay? I have experience with people. And I can spot a liar, very quickly. I mean, I'll watch a little bit. I know who's bullshitting and who's not. And these guys just screamed bullshit. The problem with this, and with so many men out there today, let me put it that way, because I don't see the same in women, for the most part, is that men don't have, for the most part, too many men don't have the experience to spot bullshit. They don't. They live a fantasy life. I mean, for crying out loud, we still have grown men loving going to these movies made up from the comic book characters. I don't even know what they're called. I can't imagine a person over about 12 wanting to go to these. Is it Marvel or is it something else? I don't know. These superhero movies. I can't. That is beyond my comprehension. That a grown man would want to watch this crap. Just like going to pro wrestling. It ain't real. So what we have in our society, and one of the big problems, we have a bunch of overgrown boys who are still living fantasies, who will go to these superhero movies, who don't have the experience themselves, and therefore don't have the ability to they don't have a structure themselves that they will hold themselves to, worthy of respect. Okay, how they live their lives. It's too superficial. So that they don't see themselves realistically, they don't see other men realistically. And so it's easy for them, not having lives in which they have truly accomplished anything manly. Now here's what I'm talking about. They haven't achieved any manly successes. Now, what do I mean by that? It has nothing to do with making money. A lot of them have great jobs, right? But so do women. See, that's the thing in today's world. They compare themselves. Many of them work. They are not out there doing, on crews or teams with other men, being held to account, being and being, let me say, being adjusted when they didn't measure up. And that's how you grow. And they're not raising their sons that way either. I'm raising my sons that way. So you have all these overgrown boys without the experience to know when they're seeing bullshit. So they love these superhero movies, and then they believe all this crap. I know I'm using vulgarities this time. I hardly ever do that on YouTube, but this just calls for it. They just fall for this stuff, and they hold these people up, and as a result, they create an entire false atmosphere of what's good and bad, and what's manly and what's not manly, and what's to be held up to great respect, and what's to be idolized, and all this. And then it has a real dangerous effect on younger men who look at this stuff and say, "Oh, wow, that's cool. I want to be that. I want to be that." I've told you before that back when 9/11 happened, I was at the time still teaching martial arts and had a bunch of clubs that I sponsored at different universities besides the gyms that I taught at. And a lot of my guys wanted to go, join up immediately after that. And at that time, I wasn't, I didn't try to dissuade them strongly, but I cautioned them about what was going on. And a lot of them went in, and some went in special ops, and they came back all screwed up. And it's just exactly what I was afraid was going to happen. And after that, I got to the point where I tried to talk to young men wanting to go into either the military or police service. I tried to talk them out of it because they were they were being led along by idolizing these false stories, and I knew them to be false. Now this was before Luttrell and all of them came out, but I mean I already knew enough crap was out there. So what is the problem? The problem is that too many in the preparedness world also fall for this stuff. And it's kind of like the same, and I'm going to make a separate one about this, about quit playing with guns. Quit playing around so much with guns. Quit being so consumed, absorbed with guns. I see guys out there who have never been in a fight, let alone a gunfight, just consumed with the latest thing they need for a gun and spending thousands of dollars going to these different schools so that they can, get their reload time down a half a second or be told, oh my God. When you haven't experienced reality, you don't know what to measure these things against. And so you will go out there and try to do what you think, you've been made to think is important to you. I wanna learn all about guns. I see these guys on YouTube all the time walking around with their guns, showing their guns when they weren't in the military, they weren't cops, they weren't anything, but they're showing their guns. They got a rifle hanging down in front of them. They walk around, they show their pistols, they draw their pistols when they don't need to. You know when to draw your pistol? When you need it. When you need to do what with it? When you may need to use it. You don't draw it to show people that you have one. That's impolite. You see, real men know that. Men of previous generations know that. They know that it's rude. It's impolite. It's stupid. It shows that you're insecure. But we have generations of men now who don't realize that, and that is the problem. So that's my little spiel on this. The problem with heroes. Men who understand what they should be doing. Young men, boys, who are taught what they should be doing in order to live a manly life. Who are taught what should be respected and what should not. They don't fall for this stuff. And we don't have enough of them. We got way too many of the other kind, the ones who want to flash, right? Who the show ponies. We used to call them show ponies. Got all the stuff. Every pony looks good in a shiny saddle. Take the saddle off and try to make that thing run, and then you find out what it really is. And we got too many of the wrong kind in our world. So I want to get back. I told you that I'd tell you something for those of you who like I said, welcome to all of the new people on the channel. Especially I wanted to send out I got to put on my glasses because I'm going to read you something for just a second as we close out. For those of you who have joined us on the Patreon channel, you are discovering why you should have and why you are glad you did. And for those of you who aren't yet with us on the Patreon channel, I wanted to read off just a number of things because you might ask, you say, well, why should I join the Patreon channel? What do you have there that you don't have here? Good question. And so that's what I want to tell you. Well, yesterday I put up, this is not on YouTube. These things are on Patreon, not on YouTube. Okay, yesterday I put up an honest review of the Bearskin Tactical hoodie. Let's see, next, the real story of Joseph. Do you know the real story of Joseph? Probably not. Most people don't. They think they do, but it's a biblical story of government slavery. Next is If Jim Wyatt Ran Yellowstone. Those of you who have read my book series, the Stonemont series, you know what I'm talking about there. The next is Leaving a Mark. I won't even explain what that is. Where is the perfect place to live? Pre and post collapse. Another positive preparedness. Then my happy Thanksgiving message. Heating your house, garage, or barn with beer bottles. A better preparedness life. Giving thanks. Prepare but preserve your peace. Channel question for Patreons. Bunch of stuff like that. So all of that. That's the kind of stuff. Besides, every day I start off the day by putting up something on the prepared on the Patreon channel. Either a scripture, a Bible verse, or a saying, starting your day out right. And we have a great time. And if those are the kinds of things that interest you, if you want to go a little bit deeper than what you see on the YouTube channel, and I don't do fear porn, guys. I just do not do it. I know there's a big market for it. That goes back to how should I say this? Well, appealing to the fantasy and the unrealistic desires of people, just like hero worship. And we don't do that here, you know. This is a place you can come and learn from me. And if you're on Patreon, you find that there's so many people over there very smart, and you'll learn from them too. So there, that's what I wanted to say today. The trouble with hero worship is that it makes people have an unrealistic idea of what's important, of what's right, of life itself. And there's a lot of people out there making money off of false stories, just lies. And people without experience, who don't have the experience to recognize these lies, fall for it and go along with it. I see the same thing when I put up any kind of gun video. I'll tell people what I know from many, many years of experience, and I'll have people, yahoos, coming on. Yeah, but such and such, something they read in a magazine. So anyway, that's it. I do suggest, and I will put the links up in, where you can put the hashtag and all that, for the Anti-Hero podcast. Is it podcast? Anti-Hero. I'll look it up. I'll put it in. And then Green Beret Chronicles. Check them out. It will alter the way you see things, and properly so. Okay, just like in police, people have a very different idea about police than reality, and I talk about that sometimes. So you all have a good day. Remember that we prepare well today, and remember, shop placement is everything. Sometimes not. We prepare well today in order to live well tomorrow, and I'll talk to you later. Bye-bye.